everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And I do want to talk about what is obviously the single biggest story, at least off the field in college football. That is who the heck is going to be the next head coach at Texas A&M. So if you listen to this show, you know a lot. We've kind of hit on this already from all angles. We started about a week, 10 days ago when Jimbo Fisher officially got fired. Talked about the marquee candidates, the Lane Kiffins, the Dan Lannings, the Mike Norvells, who would even be interested, who wouldn't be. I largely told you none of them would be interested. That seems to be the case. And then on Monday's show, we talked about some of those other guys that have emerged, a Jeff Traylor from UTSA, a Mike Elko from Duke, on and on and on and on and on. Well, I bring it up because over the last probably about 24 to 36 hours, depending on when you're listening to this, a very interesting name has emerged as potentially a candidate, potentially more, at Texas A&M, and that is Arizona head coach Jedd Fisch. I've followed him closely since he got to Arizona. I have been really impressed, and I just want to talk about him for a minute. Now, to be clear, it's hard to say exactly what's going on. We don't even know to this point as I'm recording if he's even interviewed. But at the same time, I have seen a bunch of outlets, you know, Dave Campbell Football down in Texas, a very reputable outlet, said he might be the favorite for the job, or at the very least, Texas A&M is certainly interested. So just want to talk about him. Does he make sense? Who is he? What's his background? Could he potentially be the next head coach at Texas A&M? So for people who don't know much about his background, really interesting guy. Didn't even play college football, which to me is always interesting, but you give a guy a credit when he gets to this level and to this point, right? Has bounced around all levels, coached in the Arena League, in college, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator, NFL, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Actually was with the New England Patriots. How about that? A few years before he ends up at Arizona. What I find interesting about him, though, as the Arizona head coach, he was not necessarily a universally loved hire when that decision was made. And that's not a criticism of their Arizona fans, because there were a lot of people in the media, including me, that were like, Jedd Fisch, really? From the NFL, that guy is going to be your head coach? But what I have loved about watching him at Arizona, a couple things. He came in with a plan, and like a plan on all angles, not just how we're going to win, what we're going to look like on the field, but how we're going to attack portal, how we're going to attack NIL, how we're going to attack high school recruiting. Because to me, that was the big question 3-4 years ago when he gets hired, which was kind of the big question at that time, right? Remember, at that time, we were kind of transitioning into this NIL portal world. And he kind of sat there and said, a guy from the NFL, no head coaching experience, does it really make sense? Well, he has jumped in 2 feet and slowly but methodically, obviously built that program to the point where they are right now. What are they right now? Everybody knows, right? 8-3. They're having an incredible year. I think you could argue he's the national coach of the year today. 8-3 overall. Their 3 losses early in the year at Mississippi State before there was a quarterback change. That was in overtime. They lost in triple overtime to USC, and they lose by 7 to Washington. And they're 8-3 otherwise. So 8-3, loss in overtime, triple overtime, and to the number, to a top 5 team in Washington by 7 points earlier in the year. And so I bring it up because they've been playing great, 5 straight wins, 4 of them against ranked opponents, including a smackdown of the Utah Utes last week. And what I love about him, like I said, came in with a plan in recruiting, which again, as an NFL guy, you always wonder, does he get it? Does he have the background? No. He's been amazing. First of all, how about this? Coming off a 1-11 year in year 1, he signed a top 25 recruiting class, a group that has largely elevated this Arizona program to where it is right now. The big name, obviously, that year, T-Mac, the wide receiver, the kid that is now leading the team with 10 touchdown catches, almost 1,000 yards receiving. He was like a top 50 kid. He was a kid that was committed to, believe it or not, it was an interesting deal. He was committed to, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull something up, but he was committed to Oregon. And then, of course, at that point, Mario Cristobal leaves. So he ends up going to Arizona, a top 50 recruit nationally. He's very much playing like it this year. But first off, the fact that you signed a top 25 class coming off a 1-11 season, I think that speaks to who this guy is, the game plan that was in place. Again, I know I've said it a few times, but a lot of the guys in that class are part of the program that's having success right now, including Noah Fafita, a guy that about 5'8", 5'9" quarterback out of Anaheim. He wasn't even ranked really as a recruit, not ranked the way that you would expect a Pac-12 quarterback to be ranked. Ends up at Arizona. He's balling out. The point is, the guy has an eye for talent, recruiting, whatever. I think he's been just as impressive in the portal. Jacob Cowing, transfer from UTEP, is balling out. I think defensively, the guys that he's gotten out of the portal, Bill Norton, SEC transfer from Georgia, like him, obviously having a great year. Justin Flo, former 5-star from Oregon. So the point I'm trying to make, recruiting prowess, high school recruiting, college recruiting, NIL. I think he's got that figured out. Nobody really knows all the details on a lot of NIL, but he's obviously got a situation there where he's just built something really, really, really solid at Arizona, and he's done a great job. I think the question now becomes, how interested is A&M and how interested would he be? Now, from the A&M perspective, listen, I've said this from basically about 12 hours after Jimbo Fisher got fired. My first inclination was they probably had a guy in mind. That's why you pay $77 million to buy out Jimbo Fisher. But once you realize that he isn't, that they don't have a guy in place, I like what Texas A&M is doing. I like what Ross Bjork, the AD, is doing. I like the idea of, turning over every rock, every stone, trying to find the right guy, whether it's a group of 5 guy, a power 5 guy, a coordinator, whatever. Doesn't matter who it is, just make sure that it's the right person. So from A&M's perspective, I think that I give them credit for kind of casting that wide net. I think at this point, the question would be, Jedd Fisch has no real ties to Texas A&M. He has no real ties to the SEC. And like a lot of these guys, whether it's a Lance Leipold to Chris Kleiman or whatever, are you ready to take that job in the SEC, the pressure cooker? It's no disrespect to Arizona if you're Jedd Fisch. It's no disrespect to Kansas if you're Lance Leipold, etc. It's just a different 365-day-a-year beast at those schools. And I think, you're dealing with higher profile recruits in general coming out of high school. Now, as I just said, T-Mac, the wide receiver, was like a top 50 recruit. So obviously Jedd Fisch has dealt with some of this. But you're dealing with just a different animal at Texas A&M. So I think from the positives, the wins and losses on the field speak for themselves. I do think that the style of play, the offense, would be very appealing to some of the guys at Texas A&M, the Connor Wegmans, the Evan Stewarts, the Le'Veon Mosses, the guys that you're trying to keep in that program going forward. The negatives, like I just said, never been in the SEC, not a lot of time in the SEC, certainly never been a head coach in the SEC. And I get you're not going to hire somebody that's been a head coach there, but it is just a different deal. And are you ready to step into that pressure cooker? So we'll see what happens. As of right now, we don't even know if he has interviewed at all for the job, how interested Texas A&M is. But as I said, Dave Campbell Football says that he might be the top candidate. And so it felt like it was at least worth discussing. And what I would say is, like, 1, if you're Texas A&M, I have no problem. 2, if you're Arizona, I don't know that if I'm an Arizona fan yet, I'm really worried about him going anywhere, right? There were rumors about Michigan State that, there are going to be rumors here. And this is part of having success. We talked about this with Lance Leipold a few weeks ago. Lance Leipold, remember, his AD was like, I hope people are calling my coach because that means he's doing really well. And so from Jedd Fisch's perspective, it's not a bad thing if he's taking calls. It's just how seriously is he interested in actually looking at other jobs, interviewing at other jobs, whatever. My guess is right now, the trajectory of this program, you're 3 years in, and you're going to the Big 12, and that's kind of a really nice landing spot for Arizona. Like, I don't remember how much we talked about it during this Arizona win streak, but I do think that's kind of an important thing, right? Is that you have the stability of the Big 12, and I think it's a conference that you can go in and win. Like think about, would you rather be, this sounds crazy, would you rather be Arizona right now going to the Big 12, where the Big 12, there's some nice programs, but nobody's super established. I guess Kansas State and Kansas, but nobody that you don't feel like you can get over. As a matter of fact, people are already saying that Utah might be the favorite of the Big 12 next year when they arrive, now that Cam Rising's coming back for another year. But I just bring it up because would you rather be Arizona going into the Big 12 the way you are right now? Or would you rather be, say, USC going to the Big 10? USC's got an uphill battle right now. So Arizona's very well positioned. It's year 4 for Jedd Fisch. He is very deserving of a raise. There's been a lot of reports about the Arizona, University of Arizona and the funding and this and that. Listen, if Jedd Fisch wants to stay at Arizona, the athletic department will find the money. So it just becomes a question of, is Texas A&M interested? How interested would they be? And, obviously, is he interested on his side? Because I think if he ultimately wants to stay at Arizona, I'm telling you, I've been doing this long enough. A school like Arizona can figure out a way to make it work. So Jedd Fisch, very interesting candidate. By the way, that Dave Campbell article mostly references a lot of guys that we've already talked about. Mike Elko is in that article. Lance Leipold, Jeff Traylor, as I said. Another name really quickly, Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. I mean, if you get Jonathan Smith, he's a very good football coach. I mean, Oregon State won 10 games last year. I don't know how many people realize that. They're 8-3 right now. One of their losses, by the way, ironically, to Arizona. But Jonathan Smith is a really, really good coach. And if there starts to become more speculation that he could potentially be a guy, we'll obviously dive into it. But right now, Jedd Fisch is the hot name, the hot rumor, the hot this, the hot that. It was worth at least discussing. But as I said, if you're an Arizona fan, I wouldn't be all that worried just yet. Again, it's actually a compliment when your coach's name is out there and stuff like this. And from what I've seen outside of a select few jobs, maybe his alma mater, the University of Florida, I don't think Jedd Fisch is in a rush to go anywhere.